In this video, I'm going to be explaining uh, what consumer and producer surplus mean, how to find them on a market graph, and how to calculate them with real numbers, and what happens when demand increases. So let's just start with what exactly a surplus is. A surplus is pretty much like the extra benefit that consumers get when they're willing to pay more for a product than the market price. And producer surplus is the extra benefit producers get when they sell something for more than the lowest price they're willing to accept. So, for example, if they're willing to pay $200 and the actual price is $120, so willing to pay $200 and actual price equals 120, that means consumer surplus equals $80. So let's just use a real life example of concert tickets. So this guy is a fan or consumer, and he wants to pretty much buy a ticket for $200, but the actual difference is the actual price is gonna be $120, and that's the same thing that I mentioned earlier. The difference, $80, is being the producer surplus. But if the concert organizer is willing to sell the ticket for example, $70, but gets instead $120 from the consumer, the producer surplus is the difference between these two numbers, which will be $50, yeah. Now let's look at the market graph where consumer and producer surplus are. So I'm gonna first draw a graph. So this side is gonna be the price, the bottom side is gonna be quantity. Same thing. Okay, so the demand curve is this one, which is gonna slope downward, and as the price goes down, people buy more. And this line is going to be the supply curve, which slopes upward, and is as price goes up, producers want to sell more. And the equivalent point is where supply and demand meet, which is this part, and it's the market price for, market price for price and quantity both. So we're gonna label that PE over here and QE, and we're gonna see first of all, okay, and producer surplus is just gonna be right below the PE line, so this is gonna be producer surplus, and consumer surplus is basically what's going to and consumer surplus is basically what's going to be above the P2 line, and they should both be within this triangle. And for calculating consumer surplus, suppose the equivalent price is, let's say, $6, and the quantity is 40. The highest price the consumers are willing to pay is, and where the demand curve hits the y-axis, which is going to be around here, is at $10. So the formula for the consumer surplus is basically like getting the triangle of this side, so 1/2 times base times height. So in this scenario, that is going to be, well, we see that the height is $4 because 10 minus 6 is 4. So 4, 1/2 is going to be here, multiply. The base is 40 because the quantity was 40. And if we do that, that's going to be 20. That's going to be 20, and 4 times 20 is going to be 80. So that's going to be $80. So the consumer surplus for this becomes $80. And now we're gonna see what happens when demand increases. For example, a product becomes more popular. So when demand increases, the first thing that's gonna happen is that the demand curve is going to shift to the right. So we have a new curve around here, and obviously this will create a new equilibrium. So with a higher price and a larger quantity solved, so price will be going up and quantity sold will also be going up. So the consumer surplus will be changing. It's part of it's due to the higher price, but new buyers also enter the market, and that means the total consumer surplus levels usually increases overall. Yeah. And assuming demand and supply or both unit elastic, the price and quantity will both be rising proportionally, meaning the total consumer surplus will be expanding even though each buyer pays more than the original graph. So demand goes up, that means price goes up. So quantity goes up, and that also means consumer surplus goes up.